Thank you, everyone. I'm here with Sandra Ro, the CEO of the Global Blockchain Business Council. You've been CEO for quite a while. So what initially inspired your interest in blockchain technology and digital assets? And how did this lead to your current role as the CEO of the GBBC?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm very glad to be here at Chainlink SmartCon. My journey actually started back in 2011. I was a London banker in the financial crisis. It was really bad. For anyone who didn't go through it, I will tell you, it was very, very bad to think that the entire capital markets, financial services was going to go down. And I found out about Bitcoin. And then my journey evolved from there. And I ended up running CME Group's digitization. We launched the Bitcoin reference rate and index products, which then became the futures, which, by the way, now power half of the ETFs that are out there. So that journey was for me very early on. But GBBC itself is a nonprofit foundation. We are focused on blockchain and digital assets. And we're the largest community, I believe, of institutional members. We've got more than 500 right now around the world. And I started off as a board director. And then one day they were like, we don't have a CEO. We need a CEO. Hey, Sandra, you go be CEO part-time. It's not a part-time job. I will tell you that. It's a full-on job.
You're a very well-known advocate for human-centric technology. Could you explain a bit more what this term human-centric technology means to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's very simple. My view is tech is a wonderful thing, but we need it to actually help humans. And for me, it's humans first, then the technology, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Simply put is that.
I definitely agree. And how do you see this human-centric technology become the norm in the coming years?
To me, right now, we've got so many big problems. Like, you look at any feed and you'll see there's lots of news that sound really awful, right? And my view is, as humanity, the power of what technology can do, especially decentralized tech, is actually bringing people together. And I think that's the power that we have, is this is a grassroots technology. And how do we use that? Like, let's solve really big problems. I'll give one example. At GBBC, we are looking at the UN SDG, Sustainable Development Goal 2, which is no hunger, zero hunger. For me, I think that is the one SDG we could actually accomplish by 2030, is there should be no more hunger in this world. You might say, well, how would you ever use blockchain for that? And I'll give you plenty of examples. But right now we're working with the World Food Program, and there's blockchain technology being implemented to help with zero hunger.
Oh, wow. And you think that's actually possible to accomplish that by 2011?
If we were to put our energy to it, we could do it as humanity.
That's amazing. Yeah, I hope
Yes. Unfortunately, sometimes things don't get prioritized, but there are 800 million people who have acute or really like borderline famine situation. And that number actually got worse, not better, during the pandemic. And so my view is, if we put our resources to do it, we could get that number down close to zero.
Yeah, let's hope it gets to zero eventually. Going back to the role of GBBC as the role in the global ecosystem, what specific role does GBBC play in fostering collaboration between governments, businesses, and regulators when it comes to blockchain adoption?
Yeah, that's one of our pillars from day one. One is education. The other is convening public-private stakeholders. And that means sometimes bringing people together who don't seem to align or actually maybe in direct conflict with each other. But our view is very simple. If Web 2 and Web 3 and regulators and government don't come together, we're never going to make this work properly. And we want to see scale. We want this to be a big pie for all the world, not just the typical financial centers of the world.
And how does GBBC balance advocating for blockchain innovation while also addressing concerns related to security and regulation and governments?
It's a balance. It's not an easy one. And every jurisdiction, I think, is different. You know, we're sitting in Hong Kong right now. They've got a different set of problems than other places in the world. But again, I'm going to go back to collaboration, education. We need to keep talking to each other. Because if we just rest in our silos and our little communities, in our echo chambers, we're never going to get anywhere. And so that's what we try to do, is just keep fighting against the tendency to stay in your own little silo.
Do you feel like there are governments that are easier to collaborate with compared to others?
I will not name them, but yes.
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
And what industries do you believe that will be the most transformed by blockchain technology in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years?
You say industries?
Yeah.
I think number one, because financial services started first, you will have financial services be the most advanced. And we're beginning to see that already, right? You see digital money, you see digital, lots of tokenization.
Yeah.
I think that will continue. But what's really exciting to me is when we look at what's happening in supply chain, global commerce, tracking and tracing, verification of quality, of food, of medicine. I think that has actually got huge implications.
Yeah.
And that work is happening.
That's amazing. And GBBC is actually...
Yes. We have some of the leading Web3 organizations, as well as big corporations, working towards standards to create a global commerce blockchain infrastructure. And that, to me, is actually pretty important, that you've got some of the biggest players in the world leaning in on this. And they're making a commitment with money, saying, we're going to build out this infrastructure.
That's great. And when you're building this and when you're building this wider institutional adoption, what would you say the biggest challenges are that you're facing when going in this journey? Yeah.
You know what's actually funny is I think most people who are in the space will say this too. It's not the technology, because a lot of people say, oh, but there's no interoperability, there's too many blockchains. I'm like, no. Actually, I don't think the tech is really the problem. We will figure out the tech. Sometimes it's culture, it's mindset, it's resistance to change, it's existence of established frameworks. And, let's face it, if there's already embedded systems, how difficult is that to take out?
Yeah.
So
I understand what you mean.
find the biggest impediments, not to say that people are a problem, but sometimes it is about people, and sometimes it's about entrenched existing infrastructure.
Yeah, and I read on your website as well, you're working with over 117 international jurisdictions. Does it complicate your work efforts, working with so many different regulators and rules?
Yeah. It's a constant challenge of resources. We're still relatively small organization for what we do, but we cover the globe.
Yeah.
Someone said to me, you made a mistake on day one by putting global in your name. No, we don't think that was a mistake. We think that's absolutely intentional because this technology is global, and we love that. I love the fact that we can go anywhere in the world and there's probably somebody working on a blockchain or crypto project. It's fascinating. And yes, it's complicated, but that's kind of the beauty of the international community.
Yeah, and that's why we're here.
Yes, absolutely. I think actually this technology has a unique ability to bring people together.
Yeah.
I wish sometimes the politicians would listen to us because frankly, I think we collaborate in a way that is actually quite beautiful.
Yeah, I hear a lot that it comes down to the people again, and not the tech. Going to the adoption of the digital assets, what are your thoughts on the intersection of a central bank digital currency, a CBDC, and private digital assets? Do you think they can coexist and thrive together, or do you believe it's either one of the two?
So being a proponent of free markets, I don't have a view on one is better than the other. My view is, what problems are we solving for society? Like, why do you need a CBDC? Or why do you need a tokenized deposit? Or why do you need a stable coin? And if that utility value exists and it's secure and it's done in a way that is not going to bring in bad actors, then why not? Let the markets decide. Let the people decide what medium they want to use, right?
Yeah, that's fair. You also serve in the Salesforce AI Advisory Board?
Yes, that was actually originally the Web3 Advisory Board, then became the AI Advisory.
But you're a bit into the AI sector as well?
Yes.
Okay. What are the most common intersections of blockchain and AI?
I think people are really concerned, especially about the proliferation of deep fakes, bad data, scam data, fake data. And I think blockchain is one application where you could actually do data provenance, data verification, and that's kind of like low-hanging fruit.
Is this also where the human-centric technology comes into play? I think AI is a very big technology where this is a very important term.
Yes, absolutely. And I think we're going to hear more and more people being concerned. Do we want to live in a world? This is a question I ask people. Do you want to live in a world when you look at any social media or anything digital, that you automatically discount that information, that you just don't trust it because you don't know where it came from. That is a very bad place to exist. Because in reality, we should live in a world where if we read something or if a source is verified, then we should trust that. But instead, what do people do now? They don't trust anything. That's a very bad place.
Yes, but I'm from Belgium, and we had we had a lot of elections. We had the European, we had local elections, national elections, and then in the US we also have the elections there. There's so much information bombarded at you from every angle, and you don't know. Like, you see candidates just saying anything to get elected, but you don't know whether the information is true or not. And that's why I hope one day through the blockchain we can get
So
fair.
it's bad enough that politicians in reality say whatever they need to do to get voted in.
Exactly.
But it's even worse when their campaigns or their commercials are manipulated to then manipulate people into thinking differently than what they actually said. That to me is actually very problematic. It's the manipulation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think it's going to get worse. I don't know how you feel about this, but I think it gets worse before it gets better.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that hopefully blockchain can solve one day, but I think we're still quite far from that day. And Chainlink is obviously one of the key players that helps bring this verifiable truth on the blockchain. So talking about Chainlink, it is an industry leader when it comes to technologies like CCIP and to bring tokenized RWA all through their Oracle network on a blockchain. What kind of future do you see for a company like Chainlink?
Oh, I think Chainlink is one of the absolute pioneers and leaders in that crossover. I talked about Web 2 and Web 3 working together. I mean, that's literally what Chainlink is trying to do. And I really applaud the entire team for their efforts and the community. I mean, it's not just the Chainlink team itself, it's the community that's actually helping to build all of this. So I'm following Chainlink very closely, not just because they're a GBBC member, but because I genuinely think what they're doing is actually critically important to that crossover. And we're going to be, it's going to take a while transition. And so Chainlink is going to be more vital than ever.
I definitely agree sitting here in this chair. But what steps are necessary to really improve, let's say, interoperability between various blockchain networks? And what is GBBC's role in fostering such standards?
So we've actually had a lot of discussion about this at Sibos in Beijing. I've had a little bit of it in Hong Kong FinTech Week. This interoperability conversation keeps going up. We're going to talk about it next week at Singapore FinTech Festival. But here's the crux of it. It's actually several different layers. There's like the business industry level agreements on standards. There's also legal and regulatory level agreements on standards and frameworks. And then there's technical. I think all three of those categories are working themselves out. And technical probably will figure it out, right? I actually have very high confidence that will be figured out. I think where the complexity is legal, regulatory, globally, because each jurisdiction is going to do what it thinks is right and not use the same language. And then at the business level, it's industry coming together and saying, we agree on these common sort of terms. And I think we're working towards that. I think the most difficult will be the legal regulatory standards. I don't know if that's the right word, but common framework.
Yeah. A bit completely different topic, but does GBBC work with a lot of DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations? I think true democracy does not exist. We have representative democracy where you elect someone that represents you. With DAOs, it's a bit different. Do you believe that a truly decentralized organization can work? Or do you believe that true democracy does not exist?
That is a very good question. I think there's a lot of experimentation going on. We do engage with some DAOs. We have actually interacted with some. I think the interesting thing is even within the term DAO, there is a whole array of how decentralized these groups really are. So I think there's still, let's put it this way, experimentation going on. And I think governance structures, and I think that's a good thing. I think we should push and pull on what does it really mean and how much of this really needs to be truly decentralized. Does that actually work? And it's not clear to me because maybe in a group of 5 or 10, that might be fine. But how do you do it for a group of 100 million?
Exactly. Do you believe that like in your personal opinion, that through technology we can actually achieve true democracy, where every single voice can count in an ecosystem?
Philosophically, I would love to believe that. I think the reality is you have to take human behavior into play, and that often gets distorted.
I hope blockchain can hopefully contribute to that.
The one thing I've always loved about blockchain technology is how very much it is about mathematics, cryptography, and grounded in no emotion, right? So the decision making around blockchain and what data gets put in is consensus algorithm.
Yeah.
What I also like about the governance structures of a lot of blockchains is really just it's in order. It gets, reviewed. And if it's good enough, it gets verified and then confirmed on the blockchain. To me, that is the antithesis of like humanity, which is often full of emotions, lots of drama, people wanting different things. The incentive mechanisms are all misaligned often. So to me, that's kind of one of the beauties about blockchain. It takes out some of that emotion and drama that often happens in decisions.
Yeah, it's good to have sometimes just it's either 1 or a 0, right?
It's the clarity of data sometimes that work. But again, going back to human-centric, the human element comes in, we have to account for that.
Yeah, you can completely disregard the human. It makes, otherwise we can go to apocalyptic scenarios. Yeah.
Humans also make the world interesting.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a beauty. So going to my final question or last final question, where do you see blockchain technology and digital assets and all of this evolving, let's say in the next 10 years from now? And what role will GBBC play in that?
Well, I mentioned to you, I got into this in 2011. It's already been more than 10 years and I can't believe it. It has gone in some ways a lot slower than I thought, but in other ways it's gone faster. So I think the next decade will be interesting because you cannot deny the influence of AI. I just don't think you can. So there'll be this interplay between blockchain and AI, inevitably. It's already happening. But for blockchain itself, I think what will happen is it will be so ubiquitous that eventually it just will not be talked about anymore. Like, you don't know your mobile operating system and how it really works. Most people don't, but yet they still use it. Well, people will be on blockchain and they may not even know it. And to me, that will be success of blockchain when we stop actually talking about it. It's already embedded.
I talked to some people here and they all said, or some people said that they believe that blockchain is too complex still for people to adopt it. But yeah, then again, the working of an iPhone or the internet is also very complex, and yet people still use it every day. So
and I think we're getting better and better. There's a term, make it Web 2 on the user interface so that the backend can actually be Web 3. And I think there is a little bit of that, meaning we make it so easy eventually that the backend will just work and the technologist will know the complexity, but the user will not. And I think that's fine, right?
And you working with a lot of Web3 companies, what would you suggest or give like some piece of advice to people who want to start in this Web3 world? What would you say is the most important thing to know before entering this new frontier?
Well, we talked about this before we got into our interview. Find the right people that you actually want to team up with. I think that's critical. No matter what your idea is, you've got to really trust your teammates and your core team. So find good people, and then hopefully you will find a great idea to innovate. But I have a little bit of obviously you can tell I have an American accent, but I have a bit of an American way of looking at things, which is just get started, just do something. And even if you fail, fine, pick yourself up, you learn something and move on and go find something else. There's nothing wrong with failing. Just keep going. The worst thing you can do is sit there and pontificate and not do anything because you don't want to try something because you're afraid of failing. I would say just do it.
Yeah, standing still is actually great.
Even if you're not 100% sure, you will never be 100% sure. But if you think you have a good idea, test it out. Try it.
That's beautiful to end this video on. Thank you so much, Sandra Ro. I'm going to check your hand.
No,
thank you so much. And hope best of luck with GBBC.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure people will want to see the website. So I'll put all the links in the description.
Well, really appreciate your time and love what you're doing. Thank you.